Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On the satellite imagery, today starting out in the west, we've got a trough dropping southeastward here, bringing clouds, rain, light rain, fog, and drizzle here, mainly to the eastern Aleutians, and then just trailing on back toward the AKwx area, with looks like a little bit of a break here across the Pergolofs and low clouds up through the Bering Strait. Up along the coast, more moisture here coming out of the Russian Far East associated with a weak warm front in that area. Otherwise, high pressure still holding out over the Bering Sea area with light winds and dry conditions. Over to the east, we've got a front here currently moving across the southeast coast during the afternoon on Friday, that bringing gusty winds and rain with winds just ahead of the front, gusting up to as high as 30 miles an hour, and rainfall heaviest on the central coast throughout the afternoon today, with 0.8 of an inch falling at Sitka, while Yakutat picked up about 2/3 of an inch. That's since midnight. And on down to the south, just a few hundredths of an inch falling over the southern areas here. The most of the moisture still off to the west and southwest there. And we've got rain spreading westward here up along the North Gulf Coast into the southeast interior, Prince William Sound, and then some more showers around Kodiak Island up into and across the western interior, where there's a upper level trough hanging out along or across the western part of the state. Lots of clouds and some moisture up there over the Arctic coast and North Slope down to about the Berks Range. You can see some sunshine here from the upper Yukon Valley right into the Fairbanks area, on back into the Kuskokwim Valley, and then or the Alaska Range, and then southward across the Sitna Valley into Cook Inlet. And rolling that through again, you can see the moisture here moving southeastward or east-southeastward. Northeast winds, not as strong as yesterday, but keeping the temperatures in the mid-30s there. So some areas seeing mixed rain and snow during the afternoon, temperatures in the mid to upper 30s across the entire area up there. And then scattered showers here with the trough in the west, cloudy skies, then extending all the way down in toward Bristol Bay. Then it really becomes isolated with just an isolated shower on Kodiak Island there. Northwest breezes, 10 to 20 miles an hour at the most, so lighter winds out there today. Here's a front off the southeast coast, and again, that's bringing the rainfall heaviest to the north there, especially along the coast, and up toward Elfin Cove. Haines picked up about half an inch today, and again, much lighter down the coastline there, just a few hundredths there across Prince of Wales Island. And that's slowly pushing through. Northwest flow behind it, of course, as I mentioned, that drying it out, clearing it out here on the lee side of the Alaska Peninsula. And then this trough bringing that light rain, drizzle, and fog, some IFR out here, especially around the Fox Islands. High pressure on out to the west. And for tonight, that warm front slips on down southeastward here, ready to move in on the Pergolof Islands with some moisture back to the main low there, just west of the Bering Strait. Otherwise, high pressure holding out to the west. Low clouds, fog, drizzle areas, IFR, marginal conditions possible here for the central Aleutians. Should dry out over the eastern Aleutians, and then back into some moisture here for the Alaska Peninsula. Showers and cloudy skies to the west. And variably cloudy to mostly cloudy here, south central Alaska. Clouds will be coming in tonight. Looks like most of precipitation will stay east of Cook Inlet, but some of that could get into the Chugach and Talkeetna Mountains. Again, heaviest will be down here along the coast from western Prince William Sound on over to Cordova. And that front slowly moving across the panhandle, moving in, so those winds will be diminishing. But look for periods of rain throughout the night tonight. Up to the north, that weak trough will bring some light rain and snow in the east, and that'll become more showery back to the west. And for Saturday, tomorrow, that trough here will move off to the east there and bring the rain and snow mostly to the eastern Arctic coast, improving back to the west, maybe some clearing. And now that warm front just kind of falls apart and the moisture spreads across the eastern Bering Sea from the Bering Strait southward. The bulk of the moisture will be from Nunivak Island across the Pribilof, so rain, fog, and drizzle tomorrow. Winds northwest, maybe up to 20 miles an hour. Isolated showers along the Alaska Peninsula. Drier Kodiak Island, look for a partly sunny afternoon up into Bristol Bay. And for the North Gulf Coast, we've got showers for Prince William Sound in the forecast for tomorrow. Just scattering out in the afternoon. Mostly dry for Cook Inlet, though. Just a possible sunbreak or two, but that'll mostly be down toward the southern inlet and Kodiak Island. And front weakens, moves off to the east, but another trough swings on in. Southwest flow, low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. Staying out to the west there, that's going to keep generating troughs and bringing bands of rain into the panhandle. And that'll continue through Sunday as well. Periods of rain, pretty much the forecast for the entire weekend. Winds will be lighter. We've got this next system developing off to the south, and I'll be tracking northeastward to just west of the Queen Charlotte Islands. So I'll begin to increase the winds and the rain here over the southern panhandle in the afternoon. Of course, how high the winds get and how heavy the rain will be exactly how that system tracks and how strong it becomes. But right now, it looks like it'll move to about this position at 1,003 millibars. So doesn't look like any gale force winds at this time. Periods of rain with that trough along the North Gulf Coast becoming showery back over south central Alaska, but generally dry for Cook Inlet. Isolated showers, Kodiak again. Another weak trough with some IFR, fog, and drizzle up there through the Bering Strait. And looks like some showers eastward along the Brooks Range. Southeast interior now from about Fairbanks eastward. Looks like cloudy skies with showers. Temperatures across the southeast coast today ran in the upper 40s to lower 50s with the clouds, rain, and wind as that front approaches. Otherwise, mid to upper 40s for the North Gulf Coast to about Yakutat. Or, I'm sorry, that'd be for the lows tonight. We'll be in the mid to upper 40s, upper 20s to lower 30s up there for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, and lower to mid 40s here for the southwest coast, upper 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, all the way out to the western Aleutians there, and about that same temperature trend up the coastline. And for the highs tomorrow, into the lower 60s here, central Tanana Valley, and near 60 there for the Susitna Valley, with temperatures running near 60 over the southern panhandle. Otherwise, upper 50s to the north, North Gulf Coast, mostly in the upper 50s as well. And the Aleutians rising some areas out here into the mid to upper 50s possibly. If you get a little bit of sunshine, that may kick up closer to 60 at Adak. Otherwise, lower 50s for the Pribilof. Expect that moisture to be in the area tomorrow, and lower 50s here along the southwest coast. For the lows Sunday morning, shaping up like this, about the same as it'll be Saturday morning here for the North Slope, with temperatures falling into the upper 20s here. On out to the Arctic coast, probably staying near or a little above the frost point there, right along the coastline. South of the Brooks Range, up to near 40, and then into the lower 40s, right around 40 here in the eastern interior, in that same pattern. That'll extend on down into the Copper River Basin with mid-40s, milder conditions southwest coast. Bristol Bay on down the Alaska Peninsula, and just under 50 for the Aleutians. Lower 50s for the southern southeast coast, as well as the northern areas. And for the high temperatures for Sunday afternoon, look about the same here, mid to upper 30s for the North Slope, even the Brooks Range. A little bit cooler, lower 40s for the Seward Peninsula, with lower 40s also for the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, mid to upper 50s, the Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, all of the southeast coast, and lower 50s for the Alaska Peninsula. And the eastern interior, lower 50s from Eagle on down to Northway. Otherwise, look for lower 50s for the Pribilof Island areas, and higher elevations staying in the lower 30s there throughout the Brooks Range. Otherwise, it'll be pretty nice on out to the west there, or pretty uniform temperature-wise, with high pressure holding, with mid-50s all the way out to Shemya.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for tomorrow morning should look something like this. Good VFR here, Copper River Basin, northeast Bristol Bay, northward to the Brooks Range, then you hit the IFR from the Brooks Range on out to the eastern Arctic coast, with areas of marginal, mostly marginal here in the west, all marginal out over the Bering Sea, Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, and IFR here, eastern border of the Panhandle, but a little more extensive down toward Dixon Entrance. And for tomorrow afternoon, about the same there. It's better down here in the south, but pick up a little more IFR along the central and north coast. Marginal VFR up across Gulf of Alaska, in across Prince William Sound and the south side of Kenai Peninsula. Patch IFR now off the southwest coast, and marginal VFR for the Arctic coast north slope to the Brooks Range, and then VFR to the south. And not much change out west. Then for Sunday morning, some IFR slips on into the far western Aleutians, marginal VFR everywhere else out here. More VFR for the interior down to just about, well, all of the southwest coast here, some marginal VFR through the Strait and the central eastern Arctic coast. Not a lot of change here going on for the Panhandle, and you'll see for Sunday afternoon, IFR increases again down to the south, northern areas stay marginal, all the Gulf of Alaska, back into Prince William Sound, marginal VFR, Arctic coast north slope, and then the next system pushing IFR in from the west there in toward Atka during the afternoon. And taking a look at the passes, Anaktuvuk, lowest conditions will be on the northern entrances of both Anaktuvuk and Atigan. Look for IFR there for tomorrow and Saturday, also for Atigan, and then for Lake Clark and Merrill. We've got VFR for rainy as well. Windy looking good. Isabel open, and Mentasta could be some clouds and showers, but it'll stay VFR. And for Tanita looking VFR. Portage marginal throughout the day. Chilcoot and White IFR. And the freezing levels here, a little cooler air up to the north slipping on down to the south. 2,000 to 4,000 feet there right across the Brooks Range. 4,000 feet here with a trough down the west coast to the Alaska Peninsula, and roughly about 6,000 feet for the Panhandle, eastern interior, and then up to 10,000 to 12,000 feet over the central and western Aleutian areas. And from there, we'll take a look at the icing threats, and we have some along the southwest coast here, down to just east of the Pribilofs, including Nunivak Island, and then some more spotty areas here from the Nulato Hills down into the Kuskokwim Delta. And also for the eastern Arctic coast, this area will be sliding eastward and diminishing throughout the afternoon. Best chance of any icing here of the isolated moderate variety would be from Dixon Entrance here across the southeast coast on up in toward northeast Prince William Sound. And from there, taking a look at the jet stream, we've got upper level low still off the coast, slipping a little bit farther to the east there, but still it will remain off to the west of the southeast coast there, but the jet stream is south, so you're on the cold side of the jet, but still a lot of moisture coming on in for periods of rain throughout the weekend. And we've got this north-northwesterly jet sailing on down out of the Russian Far East along the southwest coast, and then the main Pacific jet just south of the far western Aleutians. Onto the 9,000-foot wind flow chart, and a couple of lows here on the west coast, and to the west of that, pretty good gradient with the winds out of the north, 20 to 30 knots, bearing straight across St. Lawrence Island, increasing 25 to 35 there across the Pribilof Islands, and then falling back to about 20 to 25 for the Alaska Peninsula, about 10 for the eastern Aleutians, light winds with high pressure out over the western Aleutians and Bering Sea. Gulf of Alaska, low pressure right about in this position. Strongest winds well to the south there, kind of curving back up, and then a narrow band of 20 to 25 knot winds along the Panhandle, along and off the coast there, up to just south of Yakutat, and about the same pattern here for 3,000 feet, south to southeast, maybe up to 30 knots there on the north coast of the Panhandle, and easterlies falling back to 20 as you head toward the Kenai Peninsula, very light over the interior, and these northerlies out here, 15 through the strait, pick up again 25 to 30 just to the west of the coast here, coming right across the permafrost and then diminishing as they hit the Alaska Peninsula. Could be some light to isolated moderate chop there for the permafrost and the Alaska Peninsula tomorrow. With western Arctic coast, same thing, and maybe a little bit of chop there for the Panhandle as well.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We really appreciate it, as always.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks. And, you know, we're going to ask you some more satellite questions here, but, you know,
Okay.
since you're a regular guest, we're going to give you a riddle this time, kind of a trick start to the show.
Okay.
How do you see a polar bear in a snowstorm?
Sounds like a challenging question because
Okay.
the polar bear is white and the snowstorm is white.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Well, in the world of satellite meteorology, you couldn't, because the spatial resolution of this instrument that we're going to talk about today has 375 meters resolution, and even the most well-fed polar bear will not be 375 meters across.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to run into such a
No, it'd be a
creature,
bad day.
would you? In the satellite meteorology world, the equivalent would be, how do you tell the difference between clouds and then an area that has no clouds but's covered by snow,
Right.
a piece of ocean that has no clouds but has sea ice? All three of these are white. The snow, the clouds, the sea ice, it's all white. So how, using satellite data, can you tell someone where the clouds are and where the clear areas are? This is important for aviators. Mariners want to know, in the ocean there, this white stuff, is that sea ice or is that just a cloud? How do we tell the difference? And it turns out, if you look, say, at a picture of Alaska from the springtime, March or April, and it's high noon, so we're getting a lot of sunshine. If you were riding on a satellite with your human eye, look down, everything's white.
Right.
And we've got a picture of Alaska from early April, and we're seeing some of the lower elevations in south central Alaska are melting out, getting some brown ground there, but otherwise there's a whole lot of white on the image. What areas are cloudy, but what areas are clear and covered by snow or ice? It turns out that if we leave the visible spectrum behind a little bit, see, a satellite has multiple channels in the electromagnetic spectrum that it can look at. Part of that's visible light, what we see as humans, but there's a lot going on at other wavelengths. If we add in something that's called near infrared, what we couldn't quite see, but we're getting into that infrared territory, there's a magical property that we can exploit.
Secrets to find.
Oh yeah. This is actually powerful and almost magical, that at a slightly longer wavelength, when the sun shines down on Alaska and then it bounces off back to the satellite, at that near infrared wavelength, it turns out that snow and ice will absorb that wavelength, but liquid water, like liquid droplets in a cloud, will reflect it back. And that's not the way it works in visible. You know, visible, it just bounces off of all those targets the same. But at near infrared, snow and ice absorbs it, and the liquid will reflect it back. Liquid cloud droplets will do that. And so an image where everything looks white suddenly becomes colorful. And the way this recipe works is that the clouds look pink, and the snow-covered ground and the ice-covered ocean look blue. Suddenly now, we're able to see the polar bear in the snowstorm. We're able to see where the clouds are and where the snow is and where the ice is. This is a powerful advantage. Consider the case zooming into the Bering Strait area. What if you were asked to brief a pilot who wanted to fly, say, from Kotzebue down to Savunga or Gamble and had to fly VFR, visual flight rules, so they had to stay out of the clouds? Could you use a satellite image where everything is white to provide that pilot any guidance?
It'd be pretty tricky.
Very tricky. And that's why we have to go to this other recipe where the all-white polar bear in the snowstorm becomes more colorful. And now we can tell the pilot, aha, this is a cloud you want to stay out of, but over here, sure, it looks white in the visible spectrum, but what we're doing, we'll show you, oh, this is just snow-covered ground, but it's clear, so you can fly right through there, visual flight rules. Same thing for a mariner who might want to get down to St. Lawrence Island, say, but has to avoid the sea ice. This product has applicability there as well.
Wonderful.
It's an amazing new technology, so many new channels. The satellite that makes this imagery actually has 22 different channels that it looks at.
22 secret decoder rings.
22 secret decoder rings.
Okay. I liken this to an activity I had in the car when I was growing up. We go on long car rides, and we do all the work in these activity books to, stay calm, cool, and collected for our parents who are trying to get us across the state. But to get the answer, the real answer, you had to apply that red sheet to see the answer or the secret path or whatever the message was in that activity book to get you onto the next page. And it's also like a photography filter, right? If you're taking a lot of pictures, you can apply different colors to see different parts of that image. I mean, that sounds a lot like what you're talking about.
Oh, you know it. The information is in there all along. We just have to combine the channels in a way to reveal what's in there. And by the way, you're dating yourself. So you didn't have an iPad in the back of the car?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, we have, lastly, for dessert, there's a great image of this same kind of recipe. We're looking at South Central Alaska the first week of January. In first week of January, the sun, even at noon, is really low on the horizon, barely up. And in this image, the fun thing is the shadow of Denali. We can see the shadow of Denali over a lower pink cloud deck.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Denali at 20,000 feet casts a big shadow. So this is another, just for fun, kind of application here. This is called multispectral satellite imagery, and it's the future. And happily, the future is now.
Oh, that is fascinating. And 22 different secrets that can be revealed from just one satellite tool that's floating overhead. Eric, thanks so much for joining us again. We can't wait to have you back and telling us more secrets of satellite technology that are passing over us every single day and many times a day over Alaska and helping us all the way in many different parts of our lives. So thanks so much for joining us again.
Well, happy to be here.
All right. And thank you for staying with us. We'll be back with a little more weather here in just a few minutes. And of course, we'll have more Alaska weather facts anytime online.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Today's sea ice analysis, not much change from the last few days. Wide open here out to the northwest, and again, at least 250 nautical miles on up to the north here, and roughly 100 nautical miles or so from the Mackenzie Bay area. Not expected to change a whole lot over the next few days. And for the marine forecast, southerly winds, 15 knots here along the coast, southeast in the north, southwest 20 in the south, Clarence Strait southeast 15, lighter southeasterlies through the central and side waters to south 15 for northern Lynn Canal. And for Sunday's forecast, storm coming up from the south here toward the Queen Charlotte's, northerlies kicking up to 25 knots. There on the south coast, otherwise south 15. For the remainder of the coastline, seas running 6 to 8 feet. Northern Lynn Canal, 20-knot winds in the afternoon with 4-foot seas, otherwise southeast 15, with seas running roughly 3 feet. And for Prince William Sound, light northerly winds tomorrow there with slight seas. Same thing for Cook Inlet, north 10, 2-foot seas. Northeast 15 for the eastern North Gulf Coast, turning southwest at 10. And then northwesterlies, 15 knots for the Barrens, west 20 for Kachemak Bay. Outlook for Sunday, swinging the winds around to the south for Cook Inlet, but staying light, only 10 knots, and northeast 10 for Prince William Sound. Light southerly winds here for the North Gulf Coast all the way back to the Barren Islands, west 15 for Kachemak Bay. Alaska Peninsula tomorrow, northwest 20, 5 to 6 foot seas. Bristol Bay northwest at 20, turning westerly here from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. And Sunday, lighter winds through here, northwest from Bristol Bay, down across the southwest of Kodiak Island, and westerly at 15 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, northwest 20 on the Pacific side. And for the eastern Aleutians, west-northwest, 20 knots, and those fall back to about 15 knots for the central Aleutians, with light wind conditions, but becoming southerly out there west of Amchitka Island, about 15. Looks like gales will roll in Saturday night, and Sunday here we've got 35-knot winds into the western Aleutians, increasing here to 30 knots west of Adak, but still throughout the day Sunday, 15-knot winds here for the central Aleutians, west-northwest of 20 for the Fox Islands. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, those winds will be out of the northwest at 20 knots with the 5-foot seas, west at 20, 5-foot seas there for the Pribilofs, and that will extend right up into the northern Bering Sea and then turn northwest there for St. Lawrence Island. And for Sunday's outlook, light winds here now south of Nunivak Island, Light southeast winds for the Pribilof, southwest 15, St. Matthew Island, turn westerly into the Yukon Delta coast, and north of 15 for St. Lawrence Island. And for the Arctic coast, we'll start from the zone here, Wales, up to Cape Thompson, northwest 15. And then from Cape Thompson here, along the west side, we've got small craft advisories at 25 knots out of the east, 7-foot seas, east to 20 for the central coast, and then 15 to 20 knots out of the northeast for the east side. And going on to the Sunday outlook, northeast 20 here, turn easterly on the central coast. Small craft advisories for the western coastline, back to 15 to 20 from Cape Beaufort on down to the Bering Strait. And for tonight again, trough up here keeps rain and snow going along the north slope, tapering off over the Arctic coast. And this front keeps it wet but less windy here for the Panhandle as it edges inland and weakens, with moisture wrapping back up around from the, back up along the North Gulf Coast there in toward Prince William Sound. And then we've got some light moisture there with northwest winds along the Alaska Peninsula. And this system slowly moving into the Bering Sea with warm front moisture that'll be slipping on down into the Pribilof Islands as that whole system weakens, but the bulk of the moisture will bring rain, fog, and drizzle, and lower flying conditions from the Pribilofs right up to the southwest coast. Showers western interior, clearing western Arctic coast. More rain for the Panhandle, but not as windy, and probably not as heavy, but pretty continuous. Periods of right through Sunday, come a little heavier in the afternoon as this system tracks northward there to the south coast, and periods of rain up along the North Gulf Coast. Showers southeast Alaska, some clearing over the southwest part of the state, and then some more rain and fog up here along the, from the Chukchi Sea southward to St. Lawrence Island, and showers over the northwest interior. That's a look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.